Good afternoon to you. 506 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. We'll be joined in a few moments by Miranda Devine of the New York Post. Before I get there, I do want to share two elements of breaking news that we'll try and explore more this hour. We've got the Washington Post reports, and CNN specifically. CNN reports that Kamala Harris is going to sit for an interview with CNN this week while she's in Georgia. It will be conducted by CNN's Dana Bash. Oh, you ready? It's a joint interview. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Of course, it's a joint interview. She needs training walls. He's going to sit next to her to handhold her through an interview. Do you realize how stupid this is? So Kamala Harris is going to be handheld through an interview by Tim Walz. It'll air Thursday at 9 p.m. on CNN. It'll be conducted by Dana Bash, who's been nothing if not loyal to the Democrats, of course. This is great. Anyway, so that's who the Kamala campaign has settled on. I always thought, as they were going through this, I saw some of the covers this morning. It was like, where are they going to end up? And the Kamala campaign's debating which person to go with. Don't you feel like that would be a dubious distinction? Like, kind of embarrassing if they land on you. They're like, well, who's going to handle this in the way that we really want them to handle it? Like, somebody's got to be careful because we don't want Kamala to get into any peril. Who do we go to? I guess they settled on Dana Bash, CNN. And Tim Walz is going to be her assist to guide her through this. CNN's piece on this subject just going up a moment ago. Vice President Kamala Harris, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will sit with CNN for their first joint interview on Thursday. And Kamala's first interview at all. As Democrats work to broaden their base's excitement from last week's Democrat National Convention. It'll be conducted by Dana Bash. It'll air 9 p.m. on Thursday. It occurs as the candidates embark on a bus tour through the battleground state of Georgia. And it marks the first time Harris has sat with a journalist for an in-depth, on-the-record conversation since Joe Biden dropped his bid for a second term and endorsed her on July 21st. All right, joining us now, we'll ask her about the breaking news and then get into Mark Zuckerberg. Miranda Devine is here, the columnist for the New York Post and the author of Laptop from Hell. Miranda, as always, so nice to talk to you.
Hi.
Okay, and so I don't know if you've heard, but in the last few minutes, CNN has just announced they are landing the first interview with Kamala Harris. She will be doing it with Tim Walz. Both of them are going to sit down with Dana Bash this Thursday for an interview. It sounds to me like Kamala needs somebody there to help her through this thing, Miranda Devine.
It's pathetic. How pathetic is it? Honestly, Vince, she is so cowardly and so weak. She said, 3 weeks ago, oh, yes, I'll do an interview at the end of the month. And now it practically is the end of the month. And it's pretty much almost the last day, and she's not even doing it solo. So you just know, because Tim Walz can talk, with a mouthful of marbles underwater. So anytime she gets stumped, which is all the time, he will just butt in and say what he wants to say and filibuster forever, and she'll just laugh and smile and give good vibes. And, Dana Bash is okay. Like, she was fine when she was moderating the debate with Biden and Trump. But she's not renowned as being a tough interviewer. And, of course, that's not what the Harris-Walz team wants.
Yes. Well, in fact, her success during the debate that she shared with Jake Tapper was merely asking questions and then getting out of the way. But this is a different this is a different thing. If you're doing a probing interview, if you're going to try and nail down why a candidate has altered her positions so radically, you really have to go in on her. And like, for instance, today we're getting news headlines that say Kamala Harris has flip-flopped on the border wall. Now she's a border wall person. She wants a border wall. And that she is now backed away from her requirement that every American own an electric vehicle, no more internal combustion engines. She's flip-flopping all over the place. Will we get a real debate on that subject on Thursday?
Well, I mean, she may as well wear a MAGA hat, you know.
Yeah.
She's really shape-shifted into this, mini Trump. And Axios today had a story about how Tim Walz is not even doing interviews because he doesn't actually know what her positions are. What is her policy on anything, because she keeps flip-flopping. And so presumably that's why the two of them are going together, so that they can stay on the same page in real time, because neither of them has any idea. This is all a seat of the pants, poll-driven, David Plouffe, the old Obama team's decisions on the fly to try and keep her above water in the polls. And they're trying to neutralize every positive that Donald Trump has and every negative that Biden, Harris has had for the last almost 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, the news this hour is that this week, Kamala Harris's first interview on television will be done with training walls. And if that's the headline on the New York Post tomorrow, I'll be very proud. I hope that happens. So Miranda, let me move on to Mark Zuckerberg with you now. We get an open letter from him this week, or at least a letter that he sent to the House Judiciary Committee, indicating a number of things. Among them, he said that they didn't realize at the time that the Hunter Biden story was genuine and they should have allowed it. They've made all sorts of changes so they don't censor stories like that again. They said COVID-19 content was being censored at the behest of the Biden administration, and that shouldn't have happened. And he also says that he's no longer going to be using his money to interfere in our elections. What do you make of this open letter from Mark Zuckerberg? Do you believe him?
Well, no. I mean, it's just cowardly and disingenuous for him to wait until the 11th hour when he's worried that Donald Trump might win the election to come clean. And, where was he when we were being beaten up? Where was he when the laptop was publicly verified in a court of law as being authentic? He could have waited until then. Where was he when Elon Musk was releasing the Twitter files, or when the Supreme Court was hearing that landmark free speech case that included the censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop and our stories? When it mattered, he had plenty of time, when it would have taken a bit of courage over the past 4 years, and he hasn't. And what's more, in that letter, he claims that he uses all these weasel words and these euphemisms for the censorship that Facebook did to the New York Post back in October of 2020. But he says demoting and I can't even remember. They're such stupid words and so dishonest.
Yeah.
But he claims that it was pending a fact check by third-party fact checkers. And I know that they never did a fact check. Facebook never even bothered calling Tony Bobulinski, Devon Archer, or people who, like them, who had emails on the laptop that we reported from. That is the first port of call that any fact checker worth their salt would go. So they didn't do fact checking. It was just an excuse to censor, just like Twitter did, because they'd been told, as he said, by the FBI that they had to censor. And, some people now are saying, oh, well, give him a break, because if the FBI tells you to censor something, you should, or, it's understandable that you would. But he just, even when he knew that it was a lie and that it wasn't Russian disinformation, he still kept quiet. So he's always taken the coward's way out. And,
Yes.
He interfered with the 2020 election by censoring our stories. And he also interfered with his $400 million of Zuckerbucks, which helped the Democrats get more votes. So he's very dishonest.
And one thing I think is that bears repeating is that the Hunter Biden laptop saga, the fact that Facebook, one of the biggest social media companies on the planet, censored that story so quickly, that was a Biden campaign operation to silence the New York Post. This wasn't just the FBI, although it was, and it wasn't just the CIA, although it was. It was led by Tony Blinken, the chairman of the Biden campaign, who orchestrated this hit to censor your newspaper's story.
Exactly. So after Facebook and Twitter and big tech had censored our story, a few days later, we had the Dirty 51 letter from the 51 former intelligence officials, most of them CIA, saying that the laptop and our stories were Russian disinformation, which was false. And Who put them up to doing that? It was Antony Blinken, now the very incompetent Secretary of State, but then he was a senior advisor to the Biden campaign. And he phoned a guy who'd been former acting CIA director named Morell, and he instigated this idea to get this open letter written and get a whole bunch of CIA cronies like John Brennan and people like James Clapper from the NSA and others, Leon Panetta, to sign this thing. And then Joe Biden used it in the last debate against Donald Trump to get himself off the hook for the facts that we had brought forward, that he was involved in his son Hunter's influence peddling operation and had met with his Ukrainian paymaster, his partner from that company Burisma, that was paying Hunter $1 million a year. Joe Biden, as vice president, met an executive from Burisma, and he lied about it. We had that on the front page. He lied about it, and then Antony Blinken got all these CIA types to lie about it so that he could use it in the campaign, and it worked. And I think, and we've seen that there are polls showing that if the Biden voters, enough of them, had known about Joe Biden's involvement in that shady business, that they would have changed their vote. And in an election that was won by 45,000 votes, that would have made the difference.
Yeah, it sure would have. So let me go back to a point you just mentioned, which is Zuckerbucks and all of the money that Mark Zuckerberg spent to influence the election in 2020. He claims even to this day that the goal was merely, some nonpartisan election infrastructure assistance. He said he wanted to, quote, support electoral infrastructure. He writes in the letter, the idea here was to make sure local election jurisdictions across the country had the resources they needed to help people vote safely during a global pandemic. He says they were designed to be nonpartisan, spread across urban, rural, and suburban communities. Still, despite the analyses I've seen showing otherwise, I know that some people believe this work benefited one party over the other. He goes on to say his goal is to be neutral and he won't be doing this again. So that claim where he says, no, I was just spending this money to help everybody vote. I wasn't really trying to rig the system on behalf of Democrats. What do you make of it?
Well, it's a lie because he knew perfectly well he had no control over the money. He knew that he was giving that money at the behest of Democrats who were threatening him that they were going to break up his company or do something, and they were angry with him that they blamed Facebook and Google in part for Donald Trump winning in 2016, and so he was under a lot of pressure. And as usual, as a coward, he buckled and he gave this $400 million blood money, and 7 times more of that money went to Biden voting counties than Trump voting counties. That money was supposed to be for COVID, to help local municipalities, get out the vote and not have extra expenses with COVID. But none of it really went to COVID issues. It just went to left-wing activists to get more people to vote Democrat. It was an absolute gift to the Democratic Party. And, he's never been hauled over the coals for it, but that was a gift in kind.
Yeah, and also, since that time, I believe 27 states have banned Zuckerbucks. So even if he wanted to do this again, a lot of states are saying, no, thank you. We have no interest in you interfering in our elections.
Exactly, because it was so monumental in 2020. And so this one man, this big tech oligarch, this coward who just could have emulated Elon Musk but never has, he was instrumental in Joe Biden winning the election. If he hadn't involved himself, then maybe the election would have gone Donald Trump's way.
Yeah.
There were a lot of variables, but certainly Mark Zuckerberg was one of them. So I'm sorry, it's too little, too late. It's disingenuous, it's dishonest, and it actually makes me sick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, count Miranda Devine among the unimpressed. Thank you very much, Miranda. Always nice to talk to you.
Thanks, Vince.
The great Miranda Devine of the New York Post. Now, coming up, I'll take more of your calls at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We do have to talk about some breaking news today, a lot of it, as always, about Jack Smith bringing a superseding indictment accusing Donald Trump of trying to steal the 2020 election. These people steal the election and then accuse their political opponents of trying to steal the election. It's par for the course. We'll get into that. That's ahead on the program. And again, your calls moments away. Hey, good afternoon. It's 5:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The United States Supreme Court smacked the hell out of Jack Smith recently and said President Trump, just like every president, is entitled to immunity from being hassled by ridiculous prosecutors. They can't go after him for his official acts as president of the United States, which is what Jack Smith has been attempting to do. And so they said, if you're going to try and issue an indictment, you should delineate between things that are official acts and things you say were not official acts as president. And so Jack Smith today has filed a superseding indictment, breaking during our program this afternoon, as NPR puts it, against Trump in January 6th case. Prosecutors filed a superseding indictment in the federal criminal case against Donald Trump, the Republican presidential nominee, after the Supreme Court granted the former president substantial immunity, they say, with annoyance. Granted the former president. Let me just reiterate. It's every president, to include Joe Biden, who's entitled to immunity for his official acts as president of the United States. If anybody should be encouraged by the Supreme Court's finding, it is the corrupt guy in the Oval Office right now. Court papers said the superseding indictment was presented to a new grand jury, one that had not previously heard evidence in the case. The paper said the new indictment, quote, reflects the government's efforts to respect and implement the Supreme Court's holdings and remand instructions. They are not going to insist that Trump make an in-person appearance, the Justice Department, that is, under Biden, for arraignment on the new indictment. You know why? It's because all of these court cases, every time Trump is hassled back into a courtroom, his support goes up. So they're not demanding an in-person arraignment for this. The Justice Department said it will confer with Trump's lawyers and try to come up with a joint proposal for how to proceed in the case. Judge Tanya Chutkan has asked for an update by Friday. So Jack Smith staying on the case. They're still trying to imprison Donald Trump because this is how the left resolves political disputes, by trying to take their political opponents completely off the field of battle. Imprisoning the guy. They can't stop. Even when they see that it's helping him electorally. Every time Trump has appeared in front of a microphone outside of a courtroom, his support has only ticked up, and here they go again. Hoke is calling in from Round Hill now, line 2. Hoke, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. All right, look, I get it. It's on appeal, but I'm not even worried about the Supreme Court right now. What I want to know is the last court to rule on this named Jack Smith an unlawful appointment.
Yeah.
So how the hell can he bring forward indictments while the court has ruled him to be an unlawful appointment?
They're just shoving past that, aren't they? And you're right. Judge Eileen Cannon threw out in Florida the so-called classified documents case on the basis that Jack Smith was unlawfully appointed to the role by Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland violated the Constitution in appointing Jack Smith, and a whole host of very smart constitutional attorneys have said that. Everybody from Ed Meese to Justice Clarence Thomas, who wrote about that in one of his opinions for the court this year. They all said, this is crazy. Jack Smith is in every way ineligible to be doing this, and here he is trying again, isn't he, Hoke?
And both of these cases, whether it's in Florida or D.C., arise from his work as an unlawfully appointed special counsel.
Yes, you're totally right. And
I'm not dumb.
What's that?
I'm not dumb.
I know.
I'm understanding this.
I know you're not dumb. We've had a lot of conversations, and if I've walked away with anything, it's that you're a smart guy. And Hoke, you're exactly right. And of course, this is glossed over. I quoted from an NPR piece to start us off here, but of course, that's glossed over entirely. It's not mentioned. The sin of omission is going on here, and I can almost guarantee that in just about every legacy news outlet today that's trying to even talk about this issue, Hoke, they're not bringing up the very insightful point that you just did, the most useful piece of context, which is that a federal judge has found that Jack Smith is unconstitutionally and unlawfully appointed to this role.
November 5th. Come on, baby. Let's go.
I know. I keep praying for it, too. Thank you, Hoke. I appreciate the call and the excellent observation as it relates to this. So that's the news today. every new one of these indictments, the first few felt like big moments. Oh my goodness, they're bringing indictments against Trump. Now I'm practically yawning as a superseding indictment by Jack Smith. Oh, okay. Because part of it is I think that if you haven't derived a judgment out of all of this by now, like how have you been in a coma? Like where have you been? Where have you been? This is just the most predictable possible behavior. Democrats have power. They will abuse it. They're trying to crush their political opponent. They're trying to chill all opposition. It goes on and on and on. And what are they even trying to criminalize here? Let's pretend Jack Smith was legitimate for a moment. They're trying to criminalize daring to ask questions about an election. They're trying to criminalize speech, A, that's constitutionally protected, and B, they're trying to challenge just the idea of auditing the election. When President Trump calls Georgia and says, hey, would you count the votes again? I'm pretty certain I've won down there. Would you count them? Because we're not that many away. If you find these votes, boom, we win. That's a big deal. That's criminalized. They're criminalizing that. How dare you ensure the vote totals were accurate? You're not allowed to do that. What they want to do is scare Republicans from ever asking questions like that in the wake of an election or even leading up to it. Don't you begin asking questions. You ask too many questions, you'll find out what will happen to you. You'll be prosecuted by a government with unlimited resources and an unlimited capacity to destroy your life. And if we can't kill you in the courtroom, well, the process will be the punishment. We'll bankrupt you. Now, Trump, fortunately for him, he's got the resources in some sense. He's a billionaire, but nobody's got unlimited resources like the federal government does. And they're sending a clear signal here, a clear signal about what they'll do if you dare raise questions. And Trump is, what does he say about this? He's like, they're not going after me, they're going after you. I'm in the way. A good line, because it's true. Let's take a phone call from Chris, calling in from Virginia, line 4. Chris, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. Love your show.
Thank you, sir.
I was going to call. I have a slight disagreement about what you were talking about with Kamala Harris. I don't think she's flip-flopping. I don't think she's moderating or copying Trump. It's simpler than that. She's just lying. They did poll testing on her stupid positions. They determined they won't get votes. I don't think she's changed her policy at all. She's just lying to get votes, and They do this all the time.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And in case I wasn't clear on that subject, that's precisely what I think about this. But flip-flopping is the term we used to describe back in the day John Kerry's lies. And so now, once again, Kamala Harris is reliving that in an even more brain-dead way, saying that she's now for building the wall. And as I mentioned at the outset of the show today, Chris, this election, if you buy that, I hate to tell you what that means about you. This is an IQ test for voters. Will you fall for these lies? They're so preposterous.
I have lots of smart friends, and they've fallen for it. I have friends in Michigan who post on Facebook, and they've got the Trump derangement syndrome, and I don't know what news they're watching.
Are they? Did you see any of them post? Have you seen any of them post today that it's time to build the wall? Are they? Yes, I'm with Kamala. Let's build the wall.
No, no, but it scares me because they're not dumb.
Yeah, I know. It does. It does make you nervous when you see people you know who are otherwise smart fall for this crap, and you're like, "Why are you doing that?" Thank you, Chris. Yeah. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
There's Chris's call. Yeah. I also have some audio that I want to share with you. Last week we played some audio of Don Lemon running around the country asking people who they're supporting in the election and why. And one of the things that struck me is that he kept talking to people on the street, including in Atlantic City and New Jersey, and all of the answers kept coming back Trump. Everyone's like, I'm for Trump. And I thought as I watched this, I was like, there's no way, just as a statistical matter, that everyone he ran into was supporting Trump. Is he excluding the Kamala supporters? And also, he's such a loyal little political hack. Why wouldn't he cut up the video to be, here's all the people who support Kamala, right? You would think. And it could just be that he's dumb. That could be the explanation for some of this. But let me play for you a little bit first of the audio of his conversations with people who kept saying, I'm supporting Trump.
Here in Jersey, Atlantic City. Who do you support?
I'll plead the fifth.
Trump for the win.
Tell me why.
I can't really call that right now, but I just feel like she's not good for president. She's good vice, but not for
the actual lead role for the country.
Does it have anything to do with being a woman?
No.
I love that. You're a sexist. That's Don Lemon's retort. You say, I'm voting for Trump. I don't think Kamala Harris should do it. Is it because she's a woman?
No, because I feel like women, nah, you're not going to give me that.
Your money's on Harris.
Yeah,
Who do you want?
Trump.
Why don't you like Harris?
Oh, she don't have any experience.
She's the vice president. She's a senator.
Yeah, no. She has no experience.
Well, I want
She can't even do interviews on her own. How could she be president of the United States? What a ridiculous thing.
Donald Trump. I just feel we need somebody that has a stronger background with the military and the world in general.
She was a prosecutor and attorney general, and a senator, and a vice president. You're in a gambling town. Who's your money on?
I'm going to support the Democratic Party, but, I mean, Trump looks like he got it in the bag right now.
4 years ago, it was a lot better. I made a lot more money than I do now.
I know you feel that way, but that's not actually what the record shows. The economy is actually better under Biden. No, I'm serious. That's what the facts show.
Okay, you know what?
No, that's not because I watched CNN. Trump.
That is one of my favorite moments. The guy is like, my finances are way worse. And he's like, fact check, false. That's not true. That's not, your finances are a lot better now, buddy.
Trump or Harris?
Trump.
That's who's going to win.
That's who's going to win.
Who you support?
I support Trump. All the people that came to this country legally, it's not fair that they're letting all 10,000 to 15,000 people or 20,000 people here illegally. Have you seen San Diego? Yeah. They're coming off the boats, off the water right here, off the ocean. Did you know Biden was flying them in? You didn't know that?
Oh, I know.
I love that guy. I love that guy so much. And actually, to add to the case he's making today, California's legislature just advanced new privileges for illegal aliens in the state. They want to give them $150,000 in starter money to buy a home in California. Illegal aliens. That's not going to further screw up the California housing market or anything. Goodies being handed out in California because of the left.
But we had good times with Donald Trump. Our economy was good. Life was good.
But you know the economy's better under Biden than Trump.
Bullshit.
That's what the stats show.
I love that one, too, because Don Lemon was fired during the Biden administration. Not better for him.
That's what the facts show.
Well, you know what? I don't know where they're getting their facts, but I don't think they're valid. I don't know where their facts are coming from.
No, they're not valid. She's right. He's wrong. I'm going to fact check Don Lemon here. People are poorer now under Biden than they were under Trump. Their spending power has plummeted as things have become so much more expensive. I wasn't the only one, though, who noticed that all of these people that he was interviewing seemed to support Trump. How is this even possible? Again, statistically, over on MSNBC, circle backy Jen Psaki, remember her? She's got a show on the weekends, and she had Don Lemon on to discuss all of this with him. And she noticed, too. She said, well, did you hear from anybody who liked Kamala?
Was there anything? What did they think about Harris? Did they have anything to say about her?
They did have. Listen, it depends on where you are. We went to a number of different battleground states in Pennsylvania, Ohio. We were in Michigan.
So listen, as he's answering this, you can hear instantly he pauses on it because he's not exactly sure how to deliver the news. And then he begins stalling for time. How do I explain the awful responses I got about Kamala Harris?
Where you are. We went to a number of different battleground states in Pennsylvania, Ohio. We were in Michigan, Indiana, on our way, obviously, Illinois, on our way to Chicago. And it sort of depended on where you were. Pennsylvania, well, I shouldn't say Pennsylvania, I should say Philadelphia, was a bit more liberal, and the answers to the questions about her and him were quite different. But for the most part, in Pittsburgh or at the Jersey Shore and in Atlantic City, in Ohio especially, many people did not know who she was. Right? They weren't familiar with her. So I think she has to reintroduce herself to the public. But for him...
Because she doesn't do anything. She doesn't do anything. She lies about the stuff that she is doing. She doesn't appear anywhere. She doesn't do interviews. Meanwhile, how many interviews is President Trump doing on a weekly basis? How many podcasts has that guy been on? I've learned about podcasts that exist because of President Trump. He goes on random shows just to talk about his message in his effort to win the election. Kamala Harris is in hiding, and then we get the breaking news today that she's going to be on CNN this week with Dana Bash. Oh, she's doing an interview finally with Tim Walz carrying her through the interview. It's a joint interview. They're going to sit together because she can't do it on her own. It's also absurd. So here's Don Lemon trying to break the news. Don Lemon trying to break the news to Jen Psaki, who looks dumbfounded as he's explaining all of this. He says, people don't even know who she is. And then You ready for this shock? Some people like their life better under Trump.
I think she has to reintroduce herself to the public. But for him, I think that they thought that he's better for the economy. And that, again, that he gave them, that he brought money into the community, and that, or that he was on black people's side.
Her mouth is agape. She's like, I can't even believe I'm hearing this. What is happening? You know, Don Lemon doesn't want to be saying any of that. Don was at the Democrat convention tweeting pictures of himself, selfies with the stage behind him and Kamala Harris. I'm with her. He's a ridiculous human being. But he puts his microphone in the front of the faces of a bunch of real Americans, and they all are saying, yeah, I like Trump. What do you think of Kamala? Who? Never heard of her. Never heard of her. Here's what I do know. My life was better under Trump, and I'd like him back, please. Don Lemon, perhaps for the first time in a long time, doing some real journalism. All right, President Trump has responded to Jack Smith's latest judicial stunt, going after him again today. A superseding indictment saying Donald Trump tried to steal the 2020 election. Here he is. For them to do this immediately after a Supreme Court victory on immunity and more is shocking. I've also been informed by my attorneys, you're not even allowed to bring cases literally right before an election. A direct assault on democracy. This is an unprecedented abuse of the criminal justice system. The case has to do with, quote, conspiracy to obstruct the 2020 presidential election, end quote. When they are the ones that did the obstructing of the election, not me. They cheated on the election, and they go after me for, quote, cheating on the election, end quote. Interestingly, this comes at the exact same time as Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook has admitted to concealing massive amounts of information, such as Hunter Biden's laptop from hell, which is direct acknowledgement the 2020 presidential election was manipulated and rigged by the DOJ. What they are doing now is the single greatest sabotage of our democracy in history. Right on all counts. Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg just admitted in public, he's saying, yeah, we were coerced to rig the election. We did. We suppressed this critical story for the voters. Oops, our bad. We won't let that happen again. And the Justice Department, which pressured him to do it by way of the FBI, is now saying Trump tried to steal the election. Come on. What a scam. You know who I'd like to hear from on this issue? The great one, Mark Levin, up next here on WMAL.